January 7th, 2017, and today I thought a lot about the concept of the digital divide. And the digital divide is this concept where we have people who have knowledge and abilities to use technology effectively, and then we have those who do not have either knowledge or abilities to use technology efficiently, or both. What spurred this is because I am working on a project where I'm analyzing a lot of comments that doctoral students made when they were reading research articles. And they were commenting over and over and over again about this idea of multimodal literacy. And multimodal literacy, just in short, means that people are more and more learning from multiple different kinds of modalities. And these modalities are ways of being introduced to material. Most specifically, we're talking about digital technologies influencing how we learn. So modalities in the digital world can be anything from videos, web pages, images, music, podcasts. Additionally, we have things like traditional modalities, like lecturing in front of a class, group work in a class, reading from textbooks or printed out reading. So we have all these different kinds of modalities. But since we live in an increasingly digital age where computer learning is becoming more and more important, people need to be able to learn from computers, but they don't necessarily know how to. And the major take-home point is that despite the fact that the children who are the next generation coming up, the ones who are in elementary and middle school right now, they may have been born using technology, but they don't know how to learn from it. And that is an interesting thing to consider, that somebody can be immersed in a technology. They can be immersed in using social media, immersed in using websites, but not know how to learn from it. And there's a couple of reasons why that occurs. Mostly what the comments that I've been reading suggest is that it's because teachers don't know how to learn really well from these modalities. A lot of times teachers know how to learn well from reading textbooks or listening to lectures. And oftentimes when they're learning from a website, what they do is they will print the website off and read it offline. But unfortunately, the problem that they run into is that the students may not want to print off the material, and that's not necessarily the most effective way to learn online. Especially when we consider something like a web page, which has a lot of different links connecting one source to many other sources, and how that enriches the entire experience. Or how when you are reading online, it's much easier to look up the definition of a word or a concept you don't know, as opposed to reading in a textbook, especially if you don't have the internet around you. So there's a different way you can learn from the internet and from these digital devices. And they even differ between how do you learn on a laptop versus how you learn on a tablet versus how you learn on a phone. They all differ. And the concept is that we don't really have a good grasp on how to teach people to learn from it because we don't have a good theory on how we learn from these multiple modalities. And I thought that was really interesting and how this intersects even more with this concept of the digital divide. How we have people who are have-nots and those who have. And we have more and more people who do have access to technology. Almost anybody in the United States does. They can go down to their local library or another place where they can get online, or even get phones for relatively inexpensive amounts of money, and in their phones they have access to the internet. So increasingly people have access to the technology. But what they increasingly don't have, is that knowledge of how to actually use it well. Case in point, we just had an upcoming election, and part of the problem with the election cycle and the news that was going out is that there was a lot of misinformation. And people didn't understand how to use their digital devices to learn from them and be critical about the information they were consuming. Instead, they used it in a way to confirm what they may have already thought, or use it to confirm something that sounded really interesting even though it was completely false. And that's a problem, because part of having a functioning democracy is having people who can learn and consume information. Now that we have these devices that connected to the internet, and the internet has more information than anybody could ever consume in a lifetime. In fact, we could say that we have almost all of human knowledge at our fingertips. As we have access to it, we need to learn how to sift through it. And unfortunately, when you have teachers who don't know how to teach children and adolescents how to learn from those multimodalities, we're going to have a problem. Yes, some people are going to naturally be more critical and will learn from it and will know how to cross-reference sources, etc., but not everybody will. So I thought it was really fascinating to consider how this intersects with all these things. And I got to think about people who are disadvantaged and how they've already got all this disadvantage built up onto them, and now just to have another thing thrown at them with this digital divide concept. But there's hope. And I remember distinctly a famous television show, which anybody who's watching has probably heard of it, Sesame Street. It used that same kind of idea where this new medium, television, was being pumped into most people's homes at that point in time. It got to that tipping point, that saturation point in society where technology was adopted and it was into the homes of even the poor. And Sesame Street was used in order to effectively teach low-income individuals so they didn't fall as far behind. So there's got to be a way we can leverage that kind of thinking process or thought process for these digital devices. Maybe there's an app that can be made. Maybe we can create websites. There's a really well-known website portal that can help people learn. There's got to be a way that we can get something created and something into the hands of communities so that people, especially the kids, are more able to learn from these multimodalities. So just some thoughts based on the work I've been doing all day long, and I just found it interesting and wanted to record it in my daily reflection for today.